American ag and agriculture, even in North America, is so special, and being able to be a part of this industry has been the greatest blessing of my life. It's the core of everything I do. I see it as a testament to humanity because 70% of the world's food exports come from the United States. And when you think about what it means for our American producers to do what they do, everything that goes on, the progression of mankind depends on our ability to do our job and do it well. And so if I can contribute at some level, somewhere in that process, I feel like my life actually meant something. In banking, it was so money driven, so profit driven. Here, it's different. What we're trying to do is think long term. And what are we going to do in terms of addressing the legacy of that farm? What's it going to be after you're done with it? What's it going to mean to your family? You know, we had the internal discussions. What does it mean to be a legacy? What is the legacy? The legacy people think is the farm. That's not the legacy. It's our families. It's the people that have invested generations of blood, sweat, and tears to get to this point, knowing that they have been doing something special. Now we're getting into a situation where we have pundits out there attacking American agriculture because they're misled in their information. We have people, higher interest rates. We don't really have good representation from a governmental standpoint. Insurance programs are more complicated than they ever have been, but it is so important for us to pull all of this together, not for the sake of our own family, but our community, our states, our country, and the world as a whole, because our national security depends on these people doing their job and doing it well. And come hell or high water, I'm going to be there to help make sure that happens. Hey, I'm Lance Weaver. I am the director of coaching here at Legacy Farmer. I am originally from Levelland, Texas. Growing up in Levelland, it's a rural community, a lot like several of the rural communities that across the United States. Ours was based on oil and ag, and my family was a couple of generations removed from the direct impact of the farm and ranch. However, all of our businesses that we had in our family was to serve the ag sector. We had a small family brokerage, real estate brokerage. We dealt with lots of farmland and transitions. We also had a commercial electrical business that my grandfather ran. That's where I got really immersed into agriculture. We worked on center pivots and irrigation wells. That time gave me firsthand experience with lots of ag producers, and really pulled out was what I would define as an instinctive passion for agriculture, which is what led me to go on into agricultural economics, ag business as an undergrad at Sam Houston State, and then I ended up getting my master's in ag econ at Oklahoma State. Graduated at the top of my class in both locations. I had an opportunity to go to Washington, D.C., which I want to include as part of my education because it was something that fundamentally changed the course of my life, thinking that I wanted to work in our political system and have the opportunity to improve the policy that affects our producers. But after being up there and realizing how many people are constantly attacking our producers, I realized that my role may be better suited in the front lines with these guys. And that kind of changed my ideology, shifted my thought process. I actually spent a semester in the PhD program in ag econ, did very well, but really thought that the application aspect of the PhD wasn't going to be what I wanted to pursue. And I spent a lot of time in ag banking, not necessarily by choice, but because it was the best fit for my skill set. I always defined myself as an agriculturist that just so happened to be good at numbers, not necessarily as a banker. In fact, I find that term insulting, so please don't ever call me a banker. That is behind me now. And then ultimately landed here with this wonderful crew with Legacy Farmer, getting to serve what I think is the best people on planet Earth. I had quite a bit of interaction with farmers and ranchers even before I got here at Legacy Farmer. What I found is that there was an obvious need for somebody that understood numbers and was willing to invest in producers. That's not necessarily something that I would say is a natural strength of the industry. And I spent a lot of time helping build balance sheets, helping go through cash flows and understanding historicals, doing tax return analysis, and really looking forward to how they're planning on improving their operations and getting to their end goals. So ironically, it's what I do today in terms of managing the flow of information that comes through this industry and providing some clarity of what these numbers actually mean. There's a lot that you can really pull out of a balance sheet and a cash flow. It tells me a lot about the decisions that were made in the past, the investment, and the heart of what's actually going on. And there's really nothing more rewarding than when I get to see that despair that's in their eyes turn to hope, and then ultimately see the future of what that operation is going to look and honor that trust that was given to them by the previous generation. Financial expertise is, I think, a loose term. I think it's thrown around in the industry a lot. It's interesting. I think there's people that really understand numbers, that understand kind of how they come in and how they're supposed to be reported on the cash flow. But I feel like what separated my ability to help producers, and it's been something that I've experienced even at a small age, dealing with our sole proprietor businesses back in my home. I've been able to always look at a balance sheet and a cash flow and see it in a different way than other people. And I thought it was just a natural thing that everybody had. But there's a lot of things that I can pick up in terms of understanding how those numbers came to be, which I think is the application part is something that's somewhat intuitive to me in the process. And I enjoy being able to share that experience, especially the legacy farmer members coming in, because if I can teach them little tips and little things that go along the way, every little bit that they pick up is one less stressor that they have to think about on a day-to-day basis. I would say my risk management expertise is obviously going through college, getting an undergraduate in ag business, and then of course diving in much deeper and in my master's work at Ag Econ. There's a lot of the fundamental information that is something that I rely on. I understand the fundamentals in the market. I understand technical analysis as well from an academic standpoint. Those are things that really make me lean back into what I've been taught from a student. But from an application standpoint, I see things a little bit different than maybe a broker would see. I see things as there is risk management. They're always looking at optimizing your profit. I'm looking at really protecting the risk in the operation and trying to find a way of keeping you in business. And I see a lot of downside risk in the fact that I'm looking at the balance sheet and seeing how much you could actually sustain in terms of movement rather than just looking at the market risk alone. And so I take an approach from a risk management standpoint. Risk management needs a couple good, sound understanding of balance sheet and cash flow dynamics, and understanding how much an operation can be squeezed before we're out of business. And then we can work on getting past that and really pushing towards optimization and leaving a bucket out there in terms of what is hedged and what isn't hedged and when to actually optimize that. But most of the people that are in the agricultural sector, if you can't understand your balance sheet and your cash flow, you're going to have a real hard time pushing for those extra pennies. The downside risk is much greater than the upside risk. So from my background, I look at it a little bit different than maybe a seasoned risk management specialist is, because I have seen too many businesses go out. And to me, that's one of the most heartbreaking things I've ever seen in my life. There's a mental toll that happens all the way through the family. We see it in our founder with Jace, and it's what led to the creation of this wonderful company. But hopefully we can do our best and merge those ideas in order to develop a good sound plan for everybody's operation. I would say my unique strengths are being able to help somebody digest an issue, surgically pull back the layers of the operation, and understand where the bleeding is occurring. My dad's a surgeon, so I use a lot of medical metaphors. And so one of them is that I feel like most people come in and we're doing diagnostics on what they are, making sure their vision's good, making sure their hearing's good. So from a balance sheet perspective, we're looking at debt to asset, solvency, liquidity, and cash flow. These are basic, fundamental things that every operation comes in. When I see a problem in there, okay, well, here's a problem. Let's start peeling back the layers. And ultimately, we're going through each layer. And I'm like, at some point, I'm going to run into an issue where we're starting to bleed. My idea is to clamp that off and create a long-term solution to sew that body back up and create a better self going forward. We may have some exercise plans and we may have some new routines, and that may be the hard part for a lot of people to kind of adopt. But that's my job as a coach in order to kind of push you forward and make you get to that next level. So ultimately, we have something to pass on to our children. I'm looking forward to developing a coaching team and helping this company realize its potential. And I think the potential there is to plug in a hole that's currently in the industry. We like to talk about, when we're coaching people, how businesses hit a glass ceiling, and either one or two things: you either go backwards or you'll bust through that ceiling and keep growing. The industry as a whole is at a ceiling right now. And so what I feel like my role is to find the people that first and foremost have the passion for agriculture to work at this location and wake up and every day, despite the progress of their producers, are willing to have the patience and invest the time, invest the information, and grow themselves to adapt to the current situation of our operators and help the industry as a whole bust through. So at this point, as director of coaching, I am focusing heavily on bringing the right people in. And when I look for the right people, first and foremost, I am not looking for somebody that looks like that's good with numbers. There are a lot of people good with numbers that'll never work for Legacy Farmer. I'm looking for somebody that wakes up and would die on the hill for the sake of carrying the brand of agriculture. And that is what I want going forward. And it is completely unnegotiable whether you're going to get to be a part of Legacy Farmer if you don't have that particular characteristic. So I'm building a team of A players that have their heart and soul committed to making sure that the American producer survives to farm another day. This job to me is not an 8-to-5 job. This job is 365 days a year, every minute I'm alive. And so I want them to know that we're in the trenches with you. And I know that we're not there putting the money out to make sure that the crops are put in place and that you're harvesting, but anything and everything that we can offer, you're going to get our all the time. And if not, we're going to make adjustments to make sure that continues to happen. I wake up excited every day to see my people. I wake up a little tired, a little groggy, just like everybody else, but the first person I meet with and the first conversation I get to have with a producer and realizing some of these changes just completely reinvigorates my meaning for life. And so I'm excited to work with everybody that comes in here. And I hope that, guys, if you come in here, you stay committed to the process. We're going to stay committed to you. And I know you're going to be at the next level by the time we get done with our relationship. Do you feel alone in farming right now? Because if you do, you're not alone, whether you think you are or not. This is an extremely tumultuous time that we're going through in agriculture. We see a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of unanswered questions, and there's a lot of information out there. Sometimes it is good information. Sometimes it's bad information. Sometimes you feel like it's probably better just to turn it all off. We see it. We want to help you navigate through those particular issues in your operation. We want you to understand and have clarity in everything you do. It starts with very fundamental things that every business has to go through, but then it evolves into more complicated issues where we're trying to dial in efficiencies and grow your operation through better use of equipment, better use of labor, communicating effectively, and expanding your team. Ultimately, we're looking to understand what you define as your legacy, set goals to get there, measurable goals, help you stay accountable to getting there, and then ultimately in 20 to 30 years when we're all working together, we can celebrate that success together. Legacy Farmer is an unprecedented platform with lots of expertise behind it that I feel like can elevate any operation that's willing to commit and stay committed to the future of agriculture. So if you have a need, which I think most people do, we would love to talk to you. Talk to one of our coaches and help you grow to the next level of your operation.